Okay, let's turn to Amy Griffin. This is unbelievable. I told you I've got a lot of feedback from friends, from sources, from all kinds of people who are kind of riveted about what is going on with Amy Griffin, the author of The Tell. I spoke to a guy who's working on a multi-part expose, a giant magazine multi-part piece on Amy Griffin. We compared notes. I got a text from an old friend in high school, which I told you about. Her book club is like, all over this. And an email from another friend who forwarded an email that he received from an old family friend who, goes back to the area, his best friend in college. And the email says, and I got to be careful here not to reveal sources, but I just watched Hot Mics on the book The Tell by Amy Griffin. I'm close to someone who grew up in that well-to-do area of Amarillo and knows the family, the Mitchell family. That's Amy's maiden name. I've known, lived in that neighborhood for 50 years with them. Kids all grew up together. Everybody went to the same schools, traveled up to the vacation homes at a nearby lake together. They all, the wealthiest families in Amarillo, of which there aren't that many. It's a small place, had homes in a lake just outside Amarillo. Says it's 80-20 in Amarillo among everyone who knows this, that this is a false story. 80% feel this is false because everybody knows the teacher whom Amy alleges violently raped her, assaulted her when she was a girl. It's a small town. Everybody knows this guy. What Amy describes also cannot have happened in the locations. She described the bathroom in the middle school there's one, and everybody goes into it. There's no like off the beaten path bathroom. Amy's parents were known to be extreme helicopter parents, always there 10 minutes early to pick her up from everything. And then another account from someone who lives in the Hamptons, where Amy and John have their house. And they talk about people in that community who are also talking about this and suspect. But anyway, one thing to know about Amy, she's a very talented person. She's very well connected. She's big and strong. She played 4 years of volleyball at UVA. She's 6 feet tall. She's big. And I don't know, she alleges that this all happened between the ages of 12 and 14. I'm 12 and 16. And lent a dress to a girl named Claudia, who Amy posed with someone she called Claudia, and it was a girl maybe half her size. I spoke to the guy that sent that email and just got off the phone with him about a half an hour ago. Very interesting. So here are the theories that I'm going with right now with Amy Griffin. Here's where I am. One, she made this up entirely. Okay? It's very hard for me to land on that because I can't see a woman who has this kind of wealth and connections and everything you'd want in life and private jets and a handsome husband and good kids and all this stuff to also be a sociopathic, narcissistic liar who just wants to be nothing more, wants the victim feather in her cap, which of course is the coup de grace in society. If you can speak from the victim's platform and have all that, all the accoutrements, you've got it made. I mean, you can't, it's too good. I can't just think that she is that person. The other part is, the other idea is that she's genuinely confused. She remembered something that happened to someone else. And, it was it was gossip back then. And when you're that impressionable, 12, 13, 14, and you hear gossip like that, I mean, it can be overwhelming if you don't know, is it true? Is it what? And people are talking about, kids internalize that stuff and it can be very scary. And if you can't reach out to your parents and you can't talk to them about it, maybe that internalizes in an unhealthy way. There is a testimonial that corroborates that kids were talking about abuse like this happening at the very school dance that Amy writes about, but not to Amy. William Jennings Bryan is the boy who went to that 8th grade dance with Jolene Altum, who is the woman who sued Amy Griffin for stealing her story. Jolene says, I went to the dance with William Jennings Bryan, and William Jennings Bryan gave a declaration. He said, Jolene and I were close. I had a crush on her. I kept in close proximity to her. At some point during the dance, I recall Jolene being summoned by one of the male teachers at the school. And then I recall seeing the two of them disappearing alone together and leaving the public area of the dance. And then I recall seeing Jolene return to the dance, and her hair and clothes were tousled. I recall that after the Sadie Hawkins dance ended, when we were waiting for our ride to take us back to the group home, I questioned her about what had happened when she and the teacher had disappeared. While I can't recall the specific words, Jolene conveyed that there was sexual contact between herself and the teacher. Here's a very interesting part. I believe that others at our school were also aware at the time that there had been sexual contact between Jolene and the teacher at the Sadie Hawkins dance. A short time after the dance, I recall being alone with Jolene, and during this private interaction, she confirmed that she had sexual relations with the teacher. In 2025, along with others in the community, I had heard the book, The Tell, by Amy Griffin, depicted a number of events that had occurred during the time I had attended Austin Middle School with both Jolene and Amy Griffin. When I read the book, I observed that there were details in the book which author Amy Griffin had attributed to herself that I recall occurred to Jolene Altum. I believe after reading The Tell that Jolene Altum would be identifiable to anyone who went to school with us as the person depicted as Claudia in the book. Okay, maybe, here's another maybe attached to the idea that this is, someone else's memory, and she came about this, I don't know, either by accident or she came about this in some sort of genuine way. Sam Lansky, the ghostwriter that Amy used to write this book, maybe he got things confused. He gave a declaration on behalf of Amy to the court. He said, I have personal knowledge of the facts in this case. I testified truthfully to them. I first met Amy Griffin in or around October 2022 in connection with her desire to write a memoir. After an initial Zoom convo, I traveled to New York to meet Ms. Griffin in person. During that visit, Amy showed me notes that she had prepared while undergoing therapy and recovering memories of childhood sexual abuse by a teacher at her middle school in Amarillo, Texas. Over the next 2 years, I worked with Ms. Griffin to develop and publish her memoir. I understand that plaintiff alleges she is the woman pseudonymized as Claudia in the memoir. She is not. I have met the real Claudia, and plaintiff is not her. In or around April 2023, Ms. Griffin and I discussed traveling to Tennessee to meet with the real Claudia. Ms. Griffin had reached out to Claudia to ask whether she would be willing to discuss Ms. Griffin's memories. On April 21st, 2023, Ms. Griffin and I did meet with Claudia at a coffee shop. During that meeting, Claudia shared that she recalled when Ms. Griffin loaned her a pink dress for a dance in middle school, a memory referenced in The Tell, though the dress was deliberately described as floral patterned to avoid identifying the real Claudia. Claudia also told Ms. Griffin that she was not abused by the teacher that abused Ms. Griffin. Well, short and sweet by Sam Lansky, but the theories on him, this is odd. This guy that she chose to be the ghostwriter of The Tell, by the way, also the ghostwriter for Britney Spears and her book, but this guy wrote his own book. And it's a carbon copy story of what happened to Amy, writing what happened to him. Crazy. He wrote a book called Broken People. And Broken People started out as a nonfiction book, a memoir of his own story. And somewhere in there, he turned and he made it fiction. He fictionalized the story. Rather than a memoir, it absolutely details, parallels his own experiences. It follows a writer named Sam who seeks healing from profound psychological distress through an ayahuasca retreat with a shaman. The novel explores trauma, memory, identity, and the possibility that psychedelic experiences can uncover or reshape deeply buried emotional material. Well, you found the right writer. So this guy, Sam Lansky, did an interview promoting his book, Broken People, and talked about the recovery of memories. Listen to this.
The more I wrote this story, which is really a story about, the ways in which we tell ourselves stories as people, as we move through the world, the more I realized that every time we kind of open our mouths to tell us stories about who we think we are, it's a little bit of a work of fiction, I think. And I really wanted to dig into and explore that idea of how just by virtue of telling a story about something, we kind of end up making things up about ourselves.
Okay, you should see the look on the interviewer's face. We kind of make things up about ourselves along the way. She stumbles before her next question. She can't believe it. Really? The guy I talked to earlier who sent me that email, and I know myself. I mean, I have done, as I've told you, an MDMA assisted therapy. It is not a hallucinogenic. It's not known to recover memories as its, primary function. It can help make things clear, right? Things that are true, but I don't know that it uncovers memories. By the way, next week, we're going to have on a great guest who is a facilitator for MDMA therapy. She will walk us through what this does. It is fascinating. I know her very well. You will like this. By the way, we're just getting started here, and I have reached out to Amy's people. Like I told you, I want to talk to her. I'm not looking to bag on Amy Griffin. I just want to know what the hell happened here. That's Sam Lansky, the ghost writer. How about Dominic Price? Dominic Price is this alleged talent manager, producer type character who Jolene Altum says in April of 2022 got on the phone with her, said, "Hey, I'm a talent manager. I'm a producer. Tell me about your story. I want to know more about your story. We might option it for a great big series and get you paid." And she's like, "Oh, this could, help people, including myself, but it could help people. Share my story, okay." And so she had multiple conversations with this guy a couple times a week for a month. That's him, talent manager. He takes notes on his chest, as you can see with the picture. That's Dominic Price, and he is a 2019 Temptation Island reality show contestant. He was on there as one of the male tempters, seen here in this photo, tempting that nice woman. How the hell does this guy end up as a researcher for Amy Griffin? Amy says she doesn't know the guy. That's gonna, and he says never spoke to Jolene Altum. But I mean, this is all going to come out. Here's the interesting timing on this guy. Amy had her first draft of The Tell finished in March 2022. Dominic is alleged to have spoken to Jolene in April 2022. Is there a chance that the publishing company and Amy and everybody involved in the book is like, this is powerful, but we need details. It's not detailed enough. You can say these things happened and blah, 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 but we need to sell a book here. So we need details like slowly the belt was unbuckled and slammed to the floor and echoed through the building. And my hands were tied with a bandana that helped me strengthen. And the sunlight was coming through the window and the da-ba-da-ba. All these incredible details. Is it possible after looking at the first draft, somebody contacted Jolene and got better details? Now, that would suggest this is diabolical. This is the narcissistic sociopathic person that premeditatively is coming forward with this crazy account. I don't know. But the timing of the first draft being finished in March 2022 and Dominic on the phone with Jolene, as Jolene alleges, in April 2022. Now, again, there is a big date that is looming. July 23rd is the hearing where the judge will take a look at everything we've talked about. He'll take a look at everything from both sides. He'll take a look at everything that's been filed and decide if this case of Jolene's has merit. From what I've seen, from the declarations that I've read, from the woman who worked with her at the children's abuse home in Palm Springs, who said she clearly heard Jolene tell her story involving these details. Her, the boy that went to the dance and alleged that he saw her come out, that they spoke about this, that sexual contact had happened with a teacher. The girl who helped clean the dress that was soiled of Jolene, that woman. It goes on and on. There are a lot of testimonials in here. And if a judge says there's not enough to go forward, then something's wrong. I've reached out, like I said, to Amy, to her publicist. I want to talk to her. You know, I think about, remember James Fry, interviewed by Oprah? What was the name of his book? Million Little Pieces. A Million Little Pieces. There was a class action lawsuit against James Fry for making up these details by all the readers. A best-selling book. They all got together in a class action lawsuit to get their money back. This is like getting your concert ticket refunded. But imagine that. And I also ask, as I go forward, about the role of Penguin, the publishing company. Did they say, you know what? And they've already said in their own legal documents, hey, it's not upon us to do the research. We trust our authors. They come forward, it's not on us. And what did Amy write to them? She even wrote, there's the possibility that these are not my actual memories and someone else's. And yet she went out and promoted it absolutely as that being the case. Did the publishing company say, our author also happens to be worth about $8 billion? Her husband is a giantly successful hedge fund guy. He's currently running the capital campaign at the University of Virginia to raise $7 billion. He's that connected. He's the chairman of the capital campaign, fundraising for UVA. Probably difficult to make all those phone calls for money. And people go, hey, by the way, how's your wife doing? Did the publishing company say, oh, you know what? We don't need to do a whole bunch of background research or whatever. Maybe these details seem a little odd to me. Just like 80% of the community in Amarillo, Texas. Yeah. Our author's a billionaire. She'll pick up the tab. She'll pay for whatever problems there are. They'll sue her. We're good. I don't know. But everybody seems to be very confused about this with a lot of questions. And I think, I just feel like we're dealing with Blake Lively all over again. We're dealing with Lance Armstrong. We're dealing with people that get so far in. I would just say this, unless the case is totally crystal clear, Amy ought to just get out of this and say, like I said, maybe these were not my memories. Maybe something so traumatic had happened to this person and everyone was talking about it as kids and it was so traumatic, I buried it. And because of this, experience I had, it came back as mine. Which, by the way, that would piss me off almost as much because I see the value in MDMA-assisted therapy. I know how effective this is for people. I've seen it help people in major ways. It helped me. I've done it. I think it's the future. I think psychedelic assisted, by the way, so does Amy Griffin and John Griffin. They own a nice piece of Lycos, which is one of the biggest psychedelic assisted therapy companies. And some people think, the worst people think, that that's a reason why she might be promoting that this miracle therapy saved her life by recalling these memories that aren't hers. Whatever happens, don't let psychedelic assisted therapy be collateral damage. It's too good. It's too helpful. Okay. So much more to do on it. The next time we pick up on Amy will be on Monday. We will make a lot of progress on that.